This is JJ Arcega-Whiteside, wide receiver for the Philadelphia Eagles. You're listening to the Saturday Morning Snap Fantasy Football Podcast.
Yo! Your boy Mack is back with Landon. Saturday, June 15th, 2019, episode 57. Saturday Morning Snap Fantasy Football Podcast. And wherever you are, however you may be listening, we want to thank you, myself, Landon, Scott, Mark, for making us a very special part of your day. We are talking mailbag, answering your questions, doing a massive off-season answering of questions that have been sent in from you from all over. I got my boy Landon with me, ready to kick this thing off and just have a little bit of fun. Landon, what's been going on, my man?
Mac, it's really nice to have you back. It's only fitting that this is almost our 1-year anniversary and we're having recording problems just like we did 11 months ago. But it's great, man. It's too bad that our good pals Scott and Mark are not with us. But honestly, this podcast just got about 50% more accurate, better
That's
takes.
true. Very good math.
And yeah, it's good just to have you and me. We can finally talk because Scotty just can't stop talking about old retired players like Priest Holmes. And I guess technically Adrian Peterson is still in the league, but whatever. That's his excuse.
Listen, I love you, Scotty, but that was pretty bad. Really bad. It is a two-man show because of me, because it's my fault. We were supposed to record last night, and on my way home from golf, had a little bit of car trouble, unable to get home on time, and we lost Mark and Scott accordingly. So shout out to the boys, my fault, but we're gonna hold down the fort, do this thing big for you, and hopefully we represent for the crew. But you wanted to make a quick announcement about our listener league, correct?
Yeah, we're just about full on our listener league, and we're actually thinking about making it a super flex league, which means your flex position can be a quarterback. It can be any position. So makes it a little bit more interesting, more difficult to value quarterbacks. And the quarterbacks is the most important position on the actual football field. So it makes fantasy drafting quarterbacks equally important. So you see Pat Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, Andrew Luck, Baker Mayfield all go in the early rounds because they can be fit into your flex spot as well. So it's fun. We'll see. So if you have a chance, if you want to be a part of this league, make sure you tweet us at SMS_fantasy. I am Landon_SMS. Mark is MarkDraft_SMS, and Scotty is TheScott_SMS. And give us a reason why you want to join the league. We have 4 more spots, and we would be glad to have you.
Yeah, you can also get us on Instagram at Saturday Morning Snap. We're going to probably have some posts up there advertising the listener league. Go ahead, leave a comment, a direct message. Give us a reason why you want to play in the league, why you'd be a good addition. We have 8 spots filled out of a possible 12, so we're looking over the next couple months to add the last 4 people. And like Landon said, a new format, super flex, so you can have 2 quarterbacks in play. So it'll be a lot of fun, and to play different leagues is very, it's rewarding. You get to learn a lot more about football and strategy. So just have some like-minded guys in the room to participate in something new. Hopefully it's going to be a lot of fun, and we're going to be talking that trash.
Yeah, we're not at all competitive people, so.
No, not at all. No.
So
fantastic.
We've got some questions here sent in by listeners, sent in by friends of friends.
Yeah.
Maybe ourselves. Maybe I've got some personal questions in here, but we will find out.
Probably. A little ask for the friends.
But I want to know what you think about Sony Michel.
Ooh.
In Dynasty Redraft, his ADP is plummeting. Damian Harris is rising. What do you think about his the player who was drafted in the first round by the New England Patriots?
Mm-hmm. So the reason for his ADP drop is because of the surgery that he had? The scope?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah,
he hasn't participated in OTAs yet. He hasn't been cleared, but are you concerned?
No, I mean, it's a cleanup procedure. I think it's a little bit of an overreaction to the Damian Harris selection for the Patriots. So here's what I say about Sony. I'm going to equate this to our personal lives, but it does equate to you. So you come from a fairly successful family. Dad, very good businessman. Sure. He probably taught you some life lessons about money and how to make a little bit more. And if you were investing and one of your stock options plummeted, would you sell? No. What would you do? What would a good investor do?
You're gonna sell. You gotta sell high.
You gotta sell high. And what would you do if it was low?
Oh, you gotta buy when it's low. Absolutely.
You gotta buy when it's low. So this is a perfect time to go out and buy Sony Michel. I will be the first to admit that there is a carousel of running back options in New England, and you never know on a game per game basis who is going to be the guy. I mean, we saw James White be the guy more weeks than not last year, ended up being a top 10 option. But that was because he was the only healthy option and had to step up due to necessity. And so I think when you have a fully healthy list of options, they'll be used sporadically. But Sony Michel is the feature back of the group. A rookie's not going to come in and take his role. Damian Harris is just nothing more than an insurance policy. So for me, I feel quite good about Sony. I like his role in the offense. I think he's going to be the feature back. Go out and buy Sony Michel when he is on the cheap.
I like it.
What do you think? You with that?
Yeah, you've somewhat convinced me into that. A couple months ago, I was actually talking to our league mate that owns Sony Michel, and I was saying, this is before the draft, I was saying to sell him high. He didn't have any more value, or how do I say it? He had so much value at that point as almost a fringe early second round option in mock drafts we were doing. So sell him at his highest.
Yeah.
But now that he's going in the third, fourth round and people are scared of him, you're right. It's not the time to sell. So wait until he scores a couple touchdowns early in the season and sell him high. I do think Damian Harris is a pretty good talent, but you got to hold on until Sony shows out in the regular season.
Yeah, and to your point, I might not be looking to hold Sony for multiple seasons here, but
yeah.
A quick little buy and sell is never a bad idea.
Never a bad idea. We've been doing fantasy as analysts and entertainers and just talking lots of fantasy for a lot of years, but we've been recording for a full year now.
Correct.
So over the past 12 months, what are some lessons that you've learned?
So I think there's two things that come to mind. One would be from like a back-end fantasy analyst perspective. Things that I've learned from doing projections. We're in the process of doing all of our projections or refining our projections for the 2019 season. And when you start to stat out every single team and, their passing attempts and their rushing attempts and where those targets might fall, blah, 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 you do pick up a lot of trends and potential opportunities for players that exist that you might not have found through, ADP or other metrics. So for me, it's been looking at those and being like, there's a couple hundred targets that need to be spread around between, these three receivers in Miami. Which one is it going to be? Is it going to be Devontae Parker? Is it going to be Kenny Stills, Danny Amendola? Blah, blah, blah. So like just noticing trends has been super helpful. And you might not understand that if you're just, a casual player, but when you get into being a little bit more of an analyst role, some of those things help. So I'm looking for those trends when I'm drafting, not using my actual projections to do my drafting, but looking for players that fit trends. So that's been one thing that has helped me. Another thing is just, you've said over the past couple of years that I've been a person who has done really, really well in trades. I'm you give me the nickname, the trade master. And I think that it's just because...
Well, don't get too over...
Come on.
Okay.
I think it's just because I've adopted the mindset that you can't be married to your players. You have to be willing to move and trade anybody if the value is there, or if the opportunity presents itself. If you can make your team better by trading away one of your favorite players, you have to do it. And I think that if you're going to be successful in fantasy football, if you're going to win the championship, you can't draft a championship team, but you can acquire a championship team through championship caliber moves. I think you have to be willing to trade players away and acquire players and sell your favorite players at times, and not being married to your players or stuck with your players because you love them is something that you just got to get over.
It's amazing. As soon as you finish a draft, to try to facilitate trades is impossible because you drafted them and they're yours, and you can't move them for the world. And it's crazy, man. Everyone loves their team after the draft, and then once the season goes on, then things change a lot. So you're absolutely right.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I'm getting personal here. I've got a question for you, Mac, that's not football related.
Hit me.
My girlfriend gets mad at me for yelling at the TV when I'm watching sports.
Shocker.
So I'm somewhat of a loud person, but apparently I hurt your ear balls, is what she calls it.
Earballs?
Don't judge her on that.
Excuse me? No. That's a topic in itself. We need to have a wow. From a person who's studying to become a doctor, that is a serious.
Yeah, it's. I let it slide.
All right.
But what do I do? How do we get around this arguing when I'm yelling and yelling at the TV? I know they can't hear me. I understand that, but I am a passionate man, Mac. What do I do?
Listen, Drew, I know you get the episodes. I know you download. I know you tune in from time to time, but you need to hear me out on this. You know that Landon is a very emotional and passionate sports fan. And I know he's not the biggest Toronto Raptors fan, but this is a big moment for our city. And so I think that you just need to stop being sensitive and let him have this moment. We are recording on Thursday. It's going to be over by tonight. Let it go. If you don't like it, just go for a walk. Just go out, grab a little Starbucks, take your book to the coffee shop, get out of the house, because Landon ain't going nowhere.
To be fair, once that fourth quarter hit and it was intense and she got into the game and we knew it meant a lot to win that game, it got a little better. I did tone it down a little bit, right? But we watched the fourth quarter together. We did not fight. So
listen, this kind of stuff happens with me too. Like, this is roles reversed. If Kristen was watching Game of Thrones, I can't even be in the kitchen chewing because that is too much distraction. Like, she's like, just go upstairs, disappear into the office, go talk about fantasy football or do some research or whatever the hell you do up there, and get out of the living room now. So dude, it's got to be a two-way street here. Yep. Drew, you can't have it your way.
Yep.
That's my 2 cents.
I like it. Thanks.
2 cent time.
I'm gonna make sure she hears this. So, Mac, I see some trades now. A lot of dynasty drafts are done and over with, and now people are starting to trade away 2020 rookie picks.
Whew.
Have you done any research into the upcoming class? How do you value those first round or 2020 picks?
That is far too early. I think you are. Well, it can be a good thing or it can be a bad thing. You never know who's gonna emerge. It's just like trying to predict who's gonna be one of the best talents in 2020 in the NFL. Like, you just don't know who's gonna make that leap, who's gonna have a great season, a breakout, whose draft stock is gonna climb because of body fat percentages or combine results. You just never know. So
or landing spots or
well, exactly. There's just so many variables here. So yeah, I think to budget your future is a risky move. And for me personally, it's not something I'm willing to do in 2019. But I mean, if it's something that gets you the player that you want now and you're making a championship push, by all means, if someone wants your 2020 first and your 2021 first for, DeAndre Hopkins and whatever, go ahead, do it. If that's what you need to do to get it done, go for it, man. But, yeah, I'm not about it.
Thinking too far ahead. Absolutely.
I'm not about it.
Fantasy football is still about winning now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, put the best squad you can do together to win now. Yeah, there's some rebuilding teams, but you're still not going to give your players away for nothing. You got like Taylor in our league, like after our rookie draft, his team looks a lot better.
It really does.
He's got some upside. He's got some young guys. I tried to make some trades with them too. And a few weeks ago or a month ago, I didn't like the value on his team, but you know what? I like it now. So shout out to Taylor. He's making strides. I know he's working hard listening to the podcast, and I know in our Gridiron League, we're going to be very competitive.
We should be. Absolutely. If he keeps listening to this podcast, we'll be all right.
As long as he stops doing trades with you, we'll be fine.
Hey, now. The master.
All right, Mac. You got some questions?
Yeah, let's jump into some trade questions. So, there's a couple dynasty. We're gonna stay in the dynasty realm here. Why not? Here's a trade question. In a dynasty league, 10-team league, I think it's a 27-man roster. So you're looking at probably 9 or 10 starters and about a 17-player bench. A trade was made, James Conner for Kenny Stills. Now, I think a lot of people are going to want to come out and veto this trade, stop the process. What is your take on this? Do you veto this trade or do you process it?
As a general rule, I don't like to veto trades.
Correct.
We don't know. We're not in those people's heads. We don't know the value of players. People value things a lot differently. But Kenny Stills, like, who has value on Kenny Stills? He's a 27-year-old wide receiver that's been through the gauntlet. He's plays for what was last year the second worst offense in the NFL. They are probably in a rebuilding process themselves. I'm going to actually write an article about the Miami Dolphins and why I find there's value there. But he's not worth the number one running back for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Doesn't matter who it is, whether it's if Jalen Samuel's by himself, if a rookie was by himself, if heck Latavius Murray was there by himself, he's still not worth that. So James Conner is a fringe first, second round pick, and Kenny Stills is getting undrafted. You have to veto that trade. That trade can't go through. We're in leagues and we are doing a podcast to help out our league mates, people who listen. We want our leagues to be competitive and fun. And those trades like that just really don't make it enjoyable. I don't see the reasoning behind that deal. I'd be interested to hear from the guy who's acquiring Kenny Stills and what value he has. But man, it doesn't make sense to me. What about you, Mac? Are you on the same process as me? Would you just let it go through and let guys make their mistakes, or maybe it works out, or what do you say?
I'm with you. Like, unless there's blatant collusion, you can't veto a trade because bad trades happen all the time in the NFL, even in any professional sport for that matter. Guys get traded away for absolutely nothing, and so I think maybe the James Conner owner is really high on Kenny Stills because he sees, like you, a lot of value in the offense. He sees a couple hundred targets to go around between the wide receiving core, and there's only a couple, real options. So, can Kenny Stills get 120, 130 targets this year? Is that a realistic possibility? Is he also afraid that James Conner's workload is going to be diminished by Benny Snell and Jalen Samuel? Who, in Steelers camp, and this is where we'll talk a little bit about coach speak at this time of year, but in Steelers camp, there's been reports from Pittsburgh beat writers that there's been multiple running back sets happening, and James Conner's no longer the feature back. Is he a little bit afraid? Like, you just don't know what motivates people to make trades, and I think unless there's blatant collusion, like James Conner for a kicker is blatant collusion.
Sure.
James Conner for Kenny Stills is a bad trade, but it's not a trade that should be vetoed, in my opinion.
Okay. The only other question I would ask is if, say it's a redraft league and they allow trades in the off season and it's only maybe a two-man keeper or one-person keeper. If the guy that's getting James Conner doesn't have a keeper and the other guy that's trading him away already has a solid keeper, and that's the reason why they're trading, that's collusion in my mind. Right? I don't think
that it gets a little bit tricky there. I think you have to ask people intent, but
sure.
I think for this, this is framed in a dynasty format. I don't think it is collusion. I really don't.
Interesting.
Yeah, I would let it go through. I would let someone make a mistake, and we'll move on. I don't, as the commissioner, want to be somebody that controls the transactions of the league. I'm looking for fairness and integrity, and unless I think that the integrity of the league was compromised by this trade, I would veto it. But I'm gonna have to let it go through, even though I think it's a bad deal.
I like it. I don't mind that.
I've got this one's a little bit more of an interesting one, and I'm going to stick right here.
Yep.
Team A is trading Royce Freeman, Matt Breida, and the 202 for next year. This is in Dynasty for Aaron Jones, the 107, 307, and 407.
Ole.
That's a big haul. So Royce Freeman, Matt Breida, and the 202 for Aaron Jones, the 107, 307, 407. What side do you want?
I'm going to want the Aaron Jones side and all the picks. Absolutely.
Okay.
The only people do, and I was included with one of them, I valued Royce Freeman a lot last year. I took him in the first round of our rookie draft.
You had 2 first-round picks, though.
I did. That was my second first. And people still believe that he could be the workhorse back. I suppose. I do. Philip Lindsay, the injury to his wrist, isn't going to really affect his running style. And he was an extremely elusive running back. So I'm not valuing Royce Freeman much this year. So Aaron Jones, he proved to be the guy in Green Bay. His yards per carry were amazing. And when he got the work, he made the most of it. Mm-hmm. And I think he's the best player in this deal. Plus, they get all those picks. Man, I think that's a no-brainer.
I'm with you. I mean, Aaron Jones is the best player in the deal, and that's usually the side that I want. So I'm looking at this trade. I'm throwing away the 307 and the 407 because in a rookie draft, the 307 and 407 really don't mean a whole lot. There's not a whole lot of value to be had there. And those players are usually cut, unless you land an absolute beauty on a dart toss. But it's a low percentage shot. So I'm looking at this. Would I trade Aaron Jones in the 107 would I trade Royce Freeman, Matt Breida, the 202 for Aaron Jones in the 107? And I think that I would. The 107 is, I know it's only potentially 6 picks earlier than the 202, depending on league size, but that could be a huge difference. Last year in our draft, that was, I can't even think back what was in the middle. But if you look, okay, so for example,
this year's draft, that was probably like Kyler Murray.
Yeah, that was Kyler Murray. That was Kyler Murray over Deebo Samuel.
Yep.
Right. So, look, I think I would do the deal for Aaron Jones. I would want the Aaron Jones side. I would try and do something with those 307, 407 picks if I could. Use it as a little bit of draft capital to sweeten a deal if someone perceived that as value. But yeah, I would definitely take Royce Freeman. I'm a Lindsay owner. I'm a Lindsay believer. I don't believe in Royce Freeman. And Matt Breida finds himself in a backfield with 4 other backs. I mean, there's not a whole lot to be had there, I think.
To be fair, Breida did show he was injured, but he played all season and he had a great production. But you're right, Jerick McKinnon and Tevin Coleman and everyone there, you don't really want much of it until the lead back has been decided.
They also signed Raheem Mostert. Like there's a lot of mouths to feed there. And Matt Breida was only successful because there was no Jerick McKinnon. There was no Tevin Coleman in town. So that's the way I see that one.
No, you're right.
Okay. I'm going to go rapid fire at you here. 2 sets of players that are the same age. I would want to know who you would rather have. You don't have to justify. You just have to give me your gut answer. 2 players, both running backs, both 23 years of age. Yep. Rashad Penny or Tariq Cohen?
Penny.
I would go Penny as well. Two wide receivers. Yes, I would. Two wide receivers, both 26. Robbie Anderson or Sterling Shepard?
I got to go Robbie.
Damn it. I would go Robbie too.
Yeah. Now, the Cohen is a dynamic player. He can do something out of nothing when it comes to that. And maybe that was his downfall in his early career, losing yards more often than not. But they did draft Montgomery, and they set there's a role for Cohen as potentially a receiver and a third down back. I think Penny has the opportunity to be that workhorse in Seattle. At least his draft capital will give him the opportunity to try to be that. Chris Carson might just not let that happen, but long term, I think Penny's the guy. Hopefully, we'll see it. And Sterling Shepard, he's the number one wide receiver in a bad offense.
Mm-hmm.
And no. I just don't. I think the potential for Sam Darnold is far greater than Daniel Jones.
So listen, we got time for one more question. I'm going to flip it over to you. Give me your worst here.
This one I like. So this is not a listener question. This is a me question for you.
Oh, good.
So, all right. I want to know who your most likely Joe Mixon candidate is for 2019. So, as maybe our listeners remember, Mack would not draft Joe Mixon at his third round draft capital last year. Refused to because of the poor yards per carry. He didn't like him at all. Just wouldn't touch him. But then he traded for him, and he had to apologize for Joe Mixon. And now you'd gladly have him in the early second round. So a guy this year, you're not touching at their draft capital. Who's the most likely candidate to make you a liar and to make you apologize this year?
If you want to flash back to episode 22 to the Joe Mixon apology, I strongly suggest that you do, because it's a pretty good episode, and you get to see me absolutely melt over the microphone. Who's my guy this year? Okay, call this an overreaction. I don't call it an overreaction, but I see a massive change in this player's value that isn't being reflected in ADP right now. Adam Thielen ended his season on absolute ice.
Throwing me a curveball.
Yeah, throwing you a curveball. This is someone that you didn't expect, but it's a flashback to when I joined the Draft Room podcast to do a little bit of a show with them, and we talked about Adam Thielen and how he was a tale of two totally different seasons. Weeks 1 to 8 last year had 8 straight 100-yard games. He was averaging 13 targets a game, almost 10 receptions, 117 yards per game average, and had 6 touchdowns. 165 points, was blowing the field away at the wide receiver position. And that's not something that's going to, that trend's not going to continue the whole year, but it was unbelievable what he did. But now you're seeing the last part of the season, and he fell, targets went in half, 13 down to 7. 10 receptions a game down to 5, 117 yards per game in the opening weeks, 56 in the last 7 weeks, only 3 touchdowns. Literally his production was cut in half and only had one 100-yard game, and that was against Green Bay in week 12 versus the 8 he had in a row to start the year. So Adam Thielen completely fell off second part of the season, and it wasn't because Kirk Cousins stopped throwing to him. It was because Dalvin Cook returned. He returned in week 9, and the focus for this offense, for whatever reason, shifted towards the ground, the running game. And, I think that that's going to continue. If Dalvin Cook is healthy, they're going to take shots with Dalvin Cook instead of throwing the ball down the field, which to me doesn't make sense because they spend a lot of money in Adam Thielen, Stephon Diggs, Kirk Cousins. They spend a lot of money in the air attack, and their focus is running the ball, and that's Gary Kubiak's decision. So I'm going to say Adam Thielen at the 301 position right now is probably not worth the capital. You are drafting him at almost his ceiling, and I just don't think he's going to return that value. So if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but I'm not going to live on that Adam Thielen hill.
He's a great example because you saw his ceiling early in the season. You know he could. He obviously has the skill to be that number one wide receiver. He was number one wide receiver in fantasy.
You're playing with fire. I get it.
You can eat your words, but I agree. I don't mind that you don't like that ADP. He's going as high as the 205 and as low as the 104.
Mm-hmm.
So interesting. I'm looking through some fantasy football calculator. Shout out to that website. They have some great average draft position numbers, and I'm looking through and guys that I glaze over. Guys that you just when it comes to that draft, he's never on your mock drafts. And I could be wrong about Leonard Fournette.
Ooh,
he's going to the back half of the second round, as high as the 108, as low as the 310, and I don't know what to do with him. I'm just probably not going to have any of Leonard Fournette on my team, but he has the capability, the physical freak, athletic potential, that hard runner, that Adrian Peterson style, and he could totally make me a liar and make me regret not taking him and wanting to trade for him. He's had some off-field issues. You felt like you should handcuff him, and that's not necessarily something you like to do.
Correct.
But at the same time, we know he could be that top 5 running back in the league based on opportunity, complete volume. He's that Zeke Elliott type. And he might be a guy that I might be apologizing to midway through the season.
I hope you're right. I got him in Dynasty. He's my horse.
I hope you are.
Yeah. My knock on Joe Mixon last year was because I didn't think he was a good, efficient runner. And things improved in Cincinnati. They really gave him, better blocking, better guys in front of him. They gave him a lot more opportunity, and he went from like a 2.9 a carry runner to like almost a 5-yard a carry runner. So he completely proved me wrong, and I did make a trade for him, and that was, where the apology came from. So I'm doing the opposite with Adam Thielen this year. I'm saying he's very talented, very capable, but I just don't see the volume because of the...
That's fair.
Right. So I think it's a little bit more of a balanced take. And maybe just, a year wiser, a year more educated on fantasy, but who knows? I could be completely wrong and, eat my words once again. So
who's the worst player that has the best opportunity? Like Tevin Coleman or like Eric Ebron, where it's like you hate the player, but he could just be good.
Pause on that question, and we'll answer it at the start of next week's show. That's one I need a little bit of time for.
All right.
I like it. So listen, this has been short, sweet, fun. I think it's good to do these mailbag, episodes once in a while. Just really dive into some questions that we've been getting. And we
got lots more.
Keep it fun. Yeah, we do. We have a laundry list, and we'll try to get those off throughout the season as they become relevant. But keep sending them in, and if you want to be a part of the Listener League, go ahead and hit us up on social. You can get us with the episode description has all the links to our social in there. Whoever you need to get a hold of, if you want to be on our Sleeper channel or Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, doesn't matter. You can find them there, and that'll link you right to us. So go on, give us a message, and tell us why you want to be in the league. And last but not least, if you are on Apple Podcasts, go ahead and leave us a review, or just click that subscribe button, get into your pocket every single week, and so you can stay connected with us. So, that's it for me. I'll flip it over to you, Lando, and you can close this puppy out.
Yeah, thanks everyone for tuning in. I've been posting some Instagram stories, some tough draft options. And don't forget to vote on that. I've been surprised with some answers, Mac. And some line up with me, some line up with Scott. It's been fun. I'm going to try to keep on maybe a couple posts every day to keep our listeners involved. And yeah, it's been fun, Mac. It's good to have just you and I here.
Agreed. Do me a favor. The next one that you post needs to be Priest Holmes or Adrian Peterson. I just want to see him melt over that.
Sounds good, pal. Have a great day, and go Raps, go.
Go T-Weezy. See ya.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Saturday Morning Snap Fantasy Football Podcast. Follow us on Twitter at SMS_fantasy. Support this independent podcast at patreon.com/Saturday Morning Snap.